Welcome to the Lighthouse International podcast, lighting the way for your child to find their purpose and passion and live their best life. My name is Eliza Rivas. I'm the founder and director at Lighthouse International and Acton Academy, located in Lake St. Louis, Missouri. We are so excited to start this podcast because we want to have a chance for parents to investigate their most asked questions, not only about learner-driven education, but about what happens at LIA, which is our lovely acronym for Lighthouse International Academy. A little bit about myself. I am a lifelong educator, starting from the time I was recently graduated from high school. I have done everything from preschool to dance class to gymnastics buses. I have been a substitute teacher. I was a public school educator for over a decade. I've taught at the collegiate level. I've been a college recruiter for St. Louis University. So I've seen learners and I've seen education in many, many different aspects throughout my life, which is why when it was time for me to figure out options for my own daughter, when I realized that where she wasn't working for her, I really used all of that experience and put it to use to figure out what I was going to create. My 15-year-old is the reason I started Lighthouse International. When she was in elementary school, she was gifted. She loved school. She loved learning. Never had a problem with academics. Yet, at the same time, school was just never a good fit. From the very beginning, it was putting a square peg in a round hole. And I was not prepared. I was the child that always did what they were told, that was quiet. Maybe I daydreamed a bit much, but I was never one that really bucked the system. And so I had a hard time figuring out, well, if she's where she needs to be academically, why is she having so many struggles? Some of the struggles were because she could see 15 different ways of doing something and could not understand why she had to do it this one way. Some of the struggles were because she would finish things at lightning speed and get bored and start to get in trouble when she waited for everyone else to catch up. And some of the struggles really came from bullying because she was one that spoke her mind and because she was one that was not afraid to ask questions, to have discussions, to try to figure things out. She had a lot of attention put on her that led to some chronic bullying situations that got really severe. And all of those things were things that we were trying to work through. We had a team of educators around her. But at the end of the day, I remember sitting in a meeting with her gifted teacher and her counselor and her classroom teacher and the principal, and they sat around the table and just told me that, well, just so you know, whenever your daughter goes to middle school, she's going to crash and burn. And I was taken aback at first, and I was like, wow, that's intense. And then they all went through one by one and told me the horror stories of their own gifted children and how they all crashed and burned when they hit middle school, because middle school is traditional. Middle school does not try to get to know you. It does not try to figure out ways to work with you. They just, it's everything that we went through when we were in school, everything your parents, your grandparents went through if they were in school. And everybody knew that that was not going to be the right fit for my child. And after a second meeting where they said the exact same thing, I just walked away thinking, what kind of parent would I be if I was okay with that? Like, what kind of parent would just be okay with that and throw their kid to the wolves knowing that it was going to fail? So I thought I had to find another option. And I looked around the St. Louis area. I looked in every private school I could possibly find, and none of them were a good fit. Either they were more traditional than what she was coming from, which I already knew that was not going to be a good fit, or they stopped by 5th grade or 8th grade and she couldn't go all the way through, or they cost more than my college education. And I was just not okay paying that for 5th grade or 7th grade or 9th grade. As a college counselor, I lost track of how many parents and families I talked to that put everything into the best of the private high schools for their children, or schools all the way through. Then the child would get to college, they would get into college, but they would not be able to they weren't one of the ones that had the full ride scholarships, and they had no money left. And they didn't know how they were going to pay for these amazing schools that their child now got into. And I just remember thinking that is a horrible decision, because this is where they need it the most. This is where they're going to meet the networks that they're going to go through their whole life with. And if they get here and now they can't afford to come here, like, just what a waste that would have been. So all of those factors were playing in my mind, and I couldn't find any alternatives that were working. So I started looking outside of the St. Louis area, and I started looking at any cities, any schools that were known for being just innovative and creative and out of the box. And that's where I stumbled across Acton Academy for the very first time, in a school in Houston, Texas. And I just remember opening the website and my mouth dropping open, because the first things that I saw was, no homework, no grades, real world education as it should be. And I thought that would have been my dream school when I was 9 years old. That's exactly what I would have looked for. And there were none. There were none in Missouri. There were none in the Midwest at that point. I think there was maybe one in Chicago, and everything else was on the coast. And I just kept thinking, if I know that something like this is going to be the right fit for my children, there has to be other people in the area that also feel like something like this is going to be the right fit for their children. And so if it doesn't exist, I need to start it. And that's what set me on my path to becoming an Acton Academy owner. Some of the things that made me want to continue the process, because it was an arduous process to try and become an Acton owner. It was not easy. It was not fast. But as I learned more about it, some of the things that kept drawing me in after that first initial look at that website were the commitment to the idea that all children are heroes, real heroes who are going to really change the world one day, that all children have a genius inside, that there is no such thing as necessarily children who are behind or children who are ahead. It's just finding what my thing is and who I am as a person, and figuring out how do I bring that out into the world. I thought that was genius. I loved the commitment that education should build the habits and the skills that they're going to need to succeed out in the real world. I have an older daughter who is 24, and I remember watching her walk across the stage at graduation when she was 18 and thinking, this world is going to eat her alive. Like, she can do school. She knows school. She can do school. She could not be on her own out in the real world the day she graduated high school. And I remember thinking, like, what a waste that feels like, to spend 12 or 13 years of your life and not be able to be successful in the real world when you're done. I didn't like that feeling, and I loved that they had an alternative for the day you graduate, like not even after college, not when you're an adult and you have it all together, but right now at the age that you're at. I also like that it seemed to combine the best practices of everything I knew about education. And research is my jam. Like, I nerd out with educational research. I love seeing what is innovative, what's coming down the pipe, what the latest research says. And everything that they had in their system was really following the best practices of all schools of thought on education. It just kind of pulled them all together and wrapped them around this narrative of a hero's journey in a way that made them all flow. And I thought that was fantastic. The last bit of, I guess, impetus for me to continue the journey to get Lighthouse International started was the trust that they had in children. The belief that children can do far more than any adult could imagine if they just don't limit them. As an educator, that was something that I practiced on a daily basis. I was a foreign language educator, and I was far out in left field. And because of that, I never told my students that they couldn't do whatever it was that they wanted to do to communicate in a foreign language. And I remember some of the end results of that were taking my level 1 and level 2 Spanish students out to field trips where they were speaking with business owners, or they were doing scavenger hunts in a foreign language and all of that sort of thing. And people commenting at how well they spoke, even as a first year or second year language student, because I never told them they couldn't do it. I never told them it was beyond them. They had to wait until they were more advanced. And so that really spoke to me as an educator, because I am a firm believer that children will rise to whatever the expectation of them is. And that's kind of my origin story on why I created LIA, who I am, and why this has been one of the best journeys that I've ever been on in my life. In the next several episodes, we are going to be answering some of the most asked questions that parents have. A learner-driven education is quite a paradigm shift, not just in thinking about education, but thinking about children in general. It's so different from what most of us have grown up and experienced that being able to go through these questions and give you time to really kind of think about, well, what would that look like and what would that mean for my family, I think would help you really make those decisions as far as what's going to be the best fit for my child. Is this somewhere where they can be successful? Are these things that we are ready and willing to think about? And I'm excited to dive into those with you. I, again, want to thank you for taking time to listen to this podcast. I am excited to go on this journey with you. So if we're all heroes and we're all on a hero's journey, I welcome you to your call to adventure on this hero's journey as a parent, trying to figure out what learner-driven education is and is this going to be the right next step for my family. I look forward to seeing you back in future episodes, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.